In this video, you'll learn how to neutralize disrespect practically without losing your composure or your essence. And most importantly, these lessons go beyond dealing with others. They will also help you strengthen yourself internally, becoming more resilient and secure in who you are. Stay with me until the end, because each attitude will be an essential piece to transform the way you approach and respond to disrespect. Before we begin, if you're new to my channel, subscribe and activate the notifications to keep receiving my content and to help you live a fuller life. Let's now hear a story that will help you better understand the wisdom I'm going to share with you. In a busy city, there lived Lucas, a young lawyer who was facing a big challenge in his professional life. In the office where he worked, there was Marcos, a colleague who constantly disrespected him. Marcos would interrupt his meetings, make sarcastic comments, and try to diminish his ideas in front of others. Lucas felt anger rise every time he was provoked, but knew he needed to find a way to handle it without losing his composure. One afternoon, after a particularly unpleasant meeting, Lucas decided to visit Helena, a childhood friend and philosophy teacher, to seek advice. Upon hearing about the situation, Helena opened a book by Seneca and said, "Lucas, remember that anger is a fire that consumes the one who carries it." Seneca said that there is nothing more difficult than governing oneself in moments of provocation. She explained that Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies not in reacting impulsively, but in keeping control over our emotions. Helena suggested that Lucas start practicing the Stoic pause. The next time Marcos provoked him, he should breathe deeply, count to 3, and think before responding. "You cannot control what Marcos does," said Helena, "but you can control how you react. That is your true freedom." Lucas accepted the challenge. The next day in a meeting, Marcos once again tried to ridicule one of Lucas's ideas. This time, however, Lucas didn't react immediately. He took a deep breath and replied calmly, "Thank you for your comment, Marcos. Let's take a closer look at it." Surprisingly, Lucas's calm tone disarmed Marcos, who didn't know how to respond. Inspired by this success, Lucas began applying other Stoic lessons that Helena had shared. He learned to set clear but respectful boundaries. When Marcos tried to interrupt him again, Lucas firmly said, "I value your input, but I'd like to finish my point first." The confident posture of Lucas gradually made Marcos's interruptions decrease. Helena had also shared a quote from Epictetus: "It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret what happens that matters." Lucas began to practice Stoic indifference, ignoring Marcos's malicious comments that held no real value. He realized that not everything deserved a reaction. After a few months, Marcos's behavior began to change. He realized that Lucas was no longer easily shaken, and little by little, the disrespect turned into a more neutral tone. Lucas, for his part, felt more confident knowing he had dealt with the situation wisely and with dignity. The last time he visited Helena, Lucas thanked her for the advice. "You taught me to turn a problem into an opportunity for growth," he said. Helena smiled and replied with a quote from Marcus Aurelius: "The soul is strengthened by resisting blows." She explained that Lucas's true power lay in his ability to stay calm, act with integrity, and above all, remain true to who he was. And thus, Lucas learned that Stoic wisdom is not just an ancient philosophy, but a practical and powerful tool for dealing with modern challenges. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be different from him who has harmed you." With that, Lucas not only disarmed Marcos, but also became a stronger and more balanced person. Let's now look at 5 Stoic lessons to disarm those who disrespect you. 1. Don't react immediately. Imagine this scenario. You're in a work meeting and suddenly someone makes a disrespectful or provocative comment directly to you. Your first reaction would probably be to retort in the same way, right? But this is exactly where the Stoic lesson comes in. Don't react immediately. Stoics like Seneca believed that reacting impulsively is like giving control of your emotions to someone else. As Seneca wrote in one of his letters, haste in action is a reflection of an uncontrolled soul. Silence, on the other hand, is the response of the wise. This idea teaches us that the first step in dealing with disrespect is to pause and regain control of the situation. Let's apply this to real life with a fictional story. Clara, a young project manager, used to get easily offended at work whenever someone made a criticism or a provocative comment. She would respond instantly with anger or sarcasm, but this only fueled the conflict. One day, Clara decided to change her approach, inspired by Stoic philosophy. She started practicing the conscious pause. Whenever she felt provoked, she would take a deep breath, count to 3, and ask herself, "Does this person deserve my emotional energy? How can I respond more wisely and calmly?" This created a space between the stimulus and the response, allowing Clara to act calmly and strategically. In an important meeting, a colleague tried to interrupt her with a sarcastic remark. Instead of retorting, Clara paused, looked at him serenely, and continued her presentation as if nothing had happened. After finishing her point, she calmly said, "I appreciate your comment. I can address that later once I finish making my point." The impact was immediate. Her colleague felt embarrassed, and Clara maintained her authority and composure. This pause may seem simple, but it is powerful. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, it is the ability to stay calm in the midst of a storm that defines the greatness of a person. Not reacting immediately is not a sign of weakness, it's a demonstration of emotional control and strategic intelligence. Clara realized that not only did conflicts diminish, but she also gained more respect from her colleagues. She learned that it's not about avoiding confrontation, but about choosing when and how to confront it effectively. So the next time someone provokes you, remember Clara and the Stoic lesson of not reacting immediately. Breathe, think, and choose your response wisely. 2. Communicate with serenity. Imagine being in a tense environment, maybe at work or at home, where emotions are running high and someone verbally attacks you. The temptation to respond in the same tone is almost irresistible. But what if you could transform the situation instead of intensifying it? This is the power of communicating with serenity, an essential skill taught by the Stoics. Stoic philosophers believed that true strength lies in emotional balance, especially in the way we express ourselves. Epictetus reminds us, "It is impossible to learn what you think you already know." This quote invites us to listen before reacting, creating space to understand the situation before responding. Responding with serenity doesn't mean being passive, but choosing intelligence over impulsiveness. To illustrate this, consider the story of John, a community leader who often faced aggressive criticism from his team. John would engage in heated debates, which only escalated the conflict. One day, after reading about Stoicism, he decided to change his approach. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius's quote, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." John began to practice serenity in his interactions. One time, during a meeting, a colleague made an unnecessarily rude comment about John's decision. Instead of retorting, John calmly looked at him, waited a few seconds, and then replied, "I understand your point. Could you explain it better so we can find a solution together?" The impact was immediate. The hostile tone vanished, and the colleague became more open to collaborating. Seneca also teaches us that calm words have more strength than shouting. This quote shows us that the tone of voice and choice of words carry more power than emotional intensity. When you communicate with serenity, not only do you preserve your composure, but you also inspire others to reflect on their own behavior. To practice this skill, start by breathing before responding in tense situations, then choose words that show clarity and respect, even when you must disagree. Serene communication isn't just a technique, it's a demonstration of inner strength. By adopting this approach, you not only disarm conflicts, but also become an example of leadership and balance. 3. Practice Stoic indifference. Imagine facing a criticism or provocation that seems to be meant solely to destabilize you. How do you react? Most people feel the urge to defend themselves or counterattack. But what if you could simply not care, keeping your inner peace intact? This is what Stoic indifference teaches us. In Stoicism, indifference is not apathy or coldness, but the ability to distinguish what really matters from what is irrelevant. Epictetus said, "It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but the view we take of them." In other words, it's not the provocation that affects us, but the importance we give it. If we decide something is unimportant, it no longer has power over us. Consider the story of Amanda, a teacher who frequently faced critical comments from parents and colleagues. In the beginning, Amanda would get extremely upset, trying to justify every action and prove her worth. One day, after reading about Marcus Aurelius, she came across the phrase, "If someone despises you, it's their problem. The only question for you is, did you do what was right?" Inspired by this, Amanda began to practice Stoic indifference. One morning when she received a critical email from a colleague, Amanda read it calmly and asked herself, "Does this really matter for my purpose, or is it just an attempt to distract me from what's essential?" She decided not to respond in kind and instead moved on with her work, focusing on the positive impact she was making with her students. Without her reaction, the critic lost power, and Amanda maintained her serenity. Seneca teaches us that nothing is more admirable in a person than the ability to remain calm and unaffected by external events. Practicing Stoic indifference is a way to protect your energy and inner peace. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. 4. Demonstrate excellence through your actions. Imagine being in an environment where someone constantly tries to undermine your work or diminish your value. How do you respond? For the Stoics, the answer lies not in words or disputes, but in the silent excellence of your actions. Acting with virtue, competence, and dedication is the most powerful way to disarm criticism and gain respect. Epictetus reminds us, "Don't talk about who you are, show it through what you do." This teaches us that excellence doesn't need to be announced, it's perceived through the impact of our actions. Stoics believed that the best way to respond to attacks or disrespect is to act according to the highest standards of virtue and integrity. Think of Raphael, a young architect who faced constant criticism from an older colleague at his office. Instead of engaging in arguments, Raphael decided to focus on perfecting each project he developed. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius's words, "The reward of virtue is being in harmony with it." Raphael spent his time studying, adjusting details, and delivering impeccable work. Over time, clients began to notice the quality of Raphael's work, praising him directly to the management. The criticism from his colleague lost strength in the face of the undeniable quality of Raphael's work. He realized that excellence is like a light. It overshadows the shadows of any attack. Seneca offers a valuable lesson. Virtue, when practiced, illuminates everything around it. Demonstrating excellence is more than doing what is expected. It's about raising the standard. No matter if you are being challenged or disrespected, the focus should be on doing your best, not to prove something to others, but because it's your nature. By focusing on what you do best, you neutralize the critics and become an example of virtue. 5. Seek self-knowledge. Stoicism teaches that the first step in dealing with disrespect or adversity is to understand yourself. In fact, Epictetus said, Know yourself, and you will know how to deal with others. Self-knowledge helps you identify your emotional triggers, understand your strengths and weaknesses, and prepare to react wisely to challenges. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to examine his thoughts and motivations. Every day I ask myself, what am I doing right now? Is it in accordance with nature and reason? Consider the story of Isabella, a senior executive who often became defensive when criticized by her team. After a period of reflection, Isabella realized that her defensiveness stemmed from a fear of failure. She decided to confront this fear and started a personal journey of self-exploration, studying Stoic philosophy and meditation. As she understood herself better, Isabella was able to approach criticism with curiosity and openness rather than with defensiveness. By understanding her own insecurities, she became more confident and secure in her leadership, transforming how her team interacted with her. Marcus Aurelius said, "The first step in learning to live with virtue is to recognize what is out of your control." The Stoics understood that external events are beyond our control, but our response to them is fully within our grasp. By seeking self-knowledge, you can respond with clarity and purpose to any situation, freeing yourself from the emotional turbulence of disrespect. The Stoic wisdom shared in this video can transform how you handle disrespect and challenges in life. By practicing self-control, serenity, and excellence, you become unshakable. If you want to keep strengthening your mind and soul, subscribe to Unbreakable Warrior and hit the bell for more powerful content.